Alaska Airlines has teamed up with Hawaiian Airlines to create new nonstop international flights. Go to alaskaair.com or hawaiianairlines.com, and I'll tell you more details later in the show. I'm Rachel Bell, and this is Your Last Meal, the show where celebrities share stories about the foods they love most, and we dig into the history, culture, or science of those meals with experts from around the world. Today on the program, Nadia Caterina Munno, better known as the Pasta Queen.
Just gorgeous. Nonna would be proud.
Nadia's 10 million social media followers tune in to watch her make mouth-watering pastas while dressed in glamorous outfits with long red nails and bold red lipstick.
Arrabbiata means angry. Why? Because it's spicy, just like you.
After she tastes her creations, Nadia's face crumples into ecstasy, and she passionately throws her fork across the room.
It's magnificent, just like you.
Nadia's social media success has led to an Amazon Prime series called The Pasta Queen and 2 cookbooks, The Pasta Queen, a just gorgeous cookbook, and The Art of Italian Cooking, both instant bestsellers. She also sells a line of jarred pasta sauces at Walmart. Nadia comes from a long line of Italian pasta makers, but she initially resisted joining the family business, eventually getting there on her own, in her own way. So I chat with Cara Nicoletti about her career as a 4th-generation butcher, who eventually spun off and found her own niche in the meat world. Nadia obviously has strong opinions about pasta. Later in the show, she shares the worst crimes that Americans commit when they cook it, and she talks about the American foods she refuses to make for her children. That's coming up later in the show, but first, my conversation with Nadia Caterina Munno, the Pasta Queen. Nadia was born to make pasta. Her veins are strands of spaghetti, and marinara sauce is the lifeblood that flows through them. Back in Italy, her family was so famous for growing wheat and making pasta, the community nicknamed them the Macaroni Dynasty.
Sometimes I would walk the streets and say, "Oh, macchero." They call us macaroni, and they call it the Macaroni Street.
Yeah.
Because we used to hang out pasta to dry in the street, in the alley. It's just a name that the people in the village gave it.
Nadia moved to the States, but her family has lived in the same Italian farm estate since the 1800s.
So I come from the south of Italy. I was born and raised in Rome, and my father's family is from near Naples, and that's where I get the macaroni side of the family. As far as we know, all the way back to the 1700s, we've been farmers. And then specifically in the 1800s, they opened a small family pasta factory, worked the land. And to this day, we have, wheat fields and provide wheat to the region. So yeah, that's the macaroni side, the pasta making side.
So is macaroni in Italy, is it kind of like a generic term for all pasta?
Yes. In the south, it is. Yes.
Okay.
Pasta is macaroni.
Do they still have a brand? Is it like a brand you can buy in a store?
No, not anymore. Now
Okay.
you can buy my products, though.
Yeah. Is it true that your grandparents wanted you to join the family business?
Yes. And I kind of rejected it when I was in my late teens. I was going to school in Rome, and I decided to take up social studies, marketing, PR. I wanted to travel around Europe, and I did that, rejecting it almost until I became a mom. And then I had to actually cook and get into the home life. And so it kind of reignited the values and the kids coming together moments.
She made her career in finance. She was the CFO of her husband's company for 10 years and did marketing and PR for banks. But in 2015, she started a YouTube cooking channel.
And it was really hard back then. Like, to make YouTube videos, you had to have like a proper team, equipment, the editing. So I kind of dropped it, a few months later. And then in 2020, so 5 years later, after I had my fourth child, I just found TikTok by mistake, really, on my 8-year-old phone, and I was about to delete it, and then I got addicted to it.
So she started making cooking videos from her home in Florida. A far cry from the family agriculture business, but her way of connecting with the Italian cooking culture she grew up with.
Just took it to a whole new level. I guess I used the skill I learned from having grown businesses and finance and basic marketing and PR. And it was like a culmination of my love for food, the warmth it brings, my culture, which obviously, you know, as Italians, when we're abroad, we almost unite even more. And you miss it so much that you become so much more fond of it because it almost is a faraway concept because you're not home and you long for home. So I think I put it all together and I created the pasta queen.
I totally understand that. I lived abroad only for a year. I was living in Japan and I suddenly felt so patriotic. Like I'd never really felt that way. And all of a sudden I'm telling everyone like, America, it's amazing. I'm like, I never did this before. And then I got home and I realized, oh, wow, it really is beautiful here. I just kind of took it for granted.
Yeah, exactly the same happened to me. And when you are like placed in a different country, you kind of stick out as an Italian. You know, my accent, my mannerisms, my traditions, they're more highlighted. I thought I'm going to bring it together and love it.
And if you've seen her videos, you've seen her larger-than-life Italian persona.
And this is the Cleopatra of Sicily. Just gorgeous. Nonna would be proud. Mamma mia, madre di tutte le madri.
I am very much a pasta queen in real life. Growing up watching soap operas with my grandmothers, I kind of loved them so much and I thought it was so dramatic. And people from Rome are very dramatic.
Oh, really?
And Napolitans, even more dramatic. So I think I have that side of me. I can control it. But when I'm pasta queen, I let it all shine through, you know?
Nadia's story reminded me of an Italian Jewish American who, against all odds, carried on the family profession. Cara Nicoletti is a fourth-generation butcher in New York City.
It goes back to my great-great-grandfather. It skipped a generation between my grandfather and me. My grandpa had a shop growing up, and we grew up there. I never thought I would get into the butchery industry, but always very fascinated by what my family was doing and always passionate about food.
She started at an apprenticeship at the Meat Hook in Brooklyn, a whole animal shop that uses old school techniques and values, all grass-fed, high-quality meat. But finding an apprenticeship wasn't easy. You had a little bit of a hard time finding an apprenticeship.
Yes, I did. So I was working as actually a baker, a pastry cook, which is the easiest sort of like entry-level job for like a young girl with no formal experience to get. So I started looking for an apprenticeship. I walked all around Brooklyn, really, mostly my neighborhood, Williamsburg and Greenpoint, asking old men if I could work for free. And they all said no. They were all like, are you insane? No, you can work the counter, you can work the register, but you can't cut with us. And then found the Meat Hook, and Brent, who's one of the owners there, was like, yeah, you can come in tomorrow. So I started apprenticing and worked unpaid for about 1.5 years before I got hired on full time.
Cara was working at a butcher shop that sold extremely high quality meat, but there was an unexpected problem. Customers were buying way too much of it.
My customers were coming back 7 days a week, and we were getting to the point where my bosses were kind of talking about like, should we start getting boxed commodity meat to keep up with the demand? None of us wanted to do that. So I was trying to wrap my mind around kind of like how to get my customers to eat slightly less meat. And not necessarily because meat is bad, but just because I didn't want to have to sort of lower our quality in order to keep up. So I tried making veggie burgers and putting them in the case and just like asking some of my really hardcore customers to just like eat a veggie burger 1 day a week. so we can kind of like keep this really good meat going. And they didn't want anything to do with it. So it was this weird, like psychological experiment in some ways. Like I found that when I would try to push the veggie burgers on people, they would end up buying more meat than they had originally intended to. It was almost kind of like, screw you, you can't tell me what to do. And it had the opposite effect of what I was really hoping for. So I quickly pivoted from that.
But her next idea did work. Cara started making sausages that replaced some of the meat with veggies. And she came up with these really creative, delicious combinations.
Bubby's chicken soup, which is based on, a matzo ball soup. It's got carrot, celery, onion, dill. We have a chicken parm, which is, roasted tomatoes, mozzarella, breadcrumbs, parm, basil. We have a loaded baked potato, which is potato shreds, bacon, cheddar cheese, chives.
This time, she didn't have to beg. People lined up for her sausages, and she eventually left the butcher shop to start her own company, Seymour Meats and Veggies. It's spelled Seemore, but it's named for her grandpa Seymour, who was a butcher for 60 years. But just as Cara struggled to get hired as a butcher in a man's world, she ran into some of the same difficulties trying to get investors to grow the company. In 2024, female business founders received less than 3% of venture capital funding.
And that's nothing. But the message that it's showing is that, like, if you're a female founded team, you are going to have to work a whole lot harder and for a whole lot less. The deals are not as good. And it's frustrating because so much of the data is showing that women founded teams and women-led teams have a higher return on investment. They're more likely to exit, and they have a higher internal rate of return. So I think it's like 112% versus 48% if it's founded by men. I have a very difficult time understanding every day why it's been so hard for us to raise capital, because we're doing great and we're such a dynamic team and we're such a differentiated product. When I started making these sausages, there was no such thing as the blended category. And now it is very much a category that exists that I feel like I was really at the forefront of. We are pretty much the only independent meat brand in the supermarket aisle. We're not owned by any of the big meat companies. So we have less money at our disposal, which means that all the growth that we've had has been really organic and not paid for. It seems like we're an infinitely fundable company. We just have to struggle harder. And I can't help but think it's because we're all women.
But Seymour Meats is on store shelves. You can find it at Whole Foods, Target, some Costco's, and online. Nadia sees a lot of pasta crimes being committed in the States. And after the break, she shares the top 10 things that you should never do when making pasta. And she shares her last meal. Doesn't it feel like everybody's taking a trip to Japan right now? Well, cure your FOMO with Alaska Airlines' new nonstop flights from Seattle to Tokyo starting May 12th. Enjoy a Northwest crafted beer, wine, or cocktail on the flight over to whet your appetite for all the sushi, ramen, and yakitori you're going to be eating when you get there. My advice, grab an onigiri at Narita Airport as soon as you land. Alaska Airlines and Hawaiian Airlines have joined forces, giving you greater access to the world. Book your adventure today at alaskaair.com and hawaiianairlines.com.
Actually, on TikTok, I found out for the very first time about Italian Americans. I had no idea that there was an actual different culture.
Yeah.
With different customs.
Yeah, different foods.
Their own dishes. I
Uh-huh.
had no idea.
What do you think about Italian American food?
It's not my favorite. I'm not accustomed to it. I spent the majority of my life in Rome, but I do absolutely love Italian Americans, especially New Yorkers. I've been many times New York, New Jersey, Brooklyn. I mean, I've been all over the East Coast. I find them so passionate and loving, even more so than the modern Italians.
Yeah. And they're also, the same as in Italy, loud and love eating and big on family. So like all of that is the same.
Add that with the New York accent.
Yeah.
I have a little bit of a soft spot.
Uh-huh. If you had to eat one Italian American dish, what would you choose?
Oh, goodness. Spaghetti meatballs.
Okay.
Not chicken Alfredo, that's for sure.
Nadia loves that Americans love Italian food, but she wishes we would cook it correctly, which is why she developed her own 10 commandments of pasta.
Don't overcook your pasta. Salt your pasta water. Only cooks pasta when it boils. Seen some serious crimes of pasta going in when the pasta water is cold.
What?
I know.
That's
I've
crazy.
Seen it all. I've seen it all.
I'm so sorry.
Don't break your pasta. Don't put ketchup on pasta. Don't add heavy cream to your carbonara. Respect your nonnas. Nonnas can be very jealous of one another for your mother and your father's side. If you're eating, you can never say that one pasta is better than the other nonna. And you have to kind of like distribute your time accordingly. Otherwise, there'll be a diplomatic incident.
Oh, yeah. There's a couple that were interesting to me because I knew all of those, but I've always heard Italians saying, you never mix cheese with fish. But you said unless it's pecorino.
Yeah.
I've not heard that before.
So in the south of Italy, there's exceptions where we make dishes with seafood and pecorino. And I have elaborated that in my cookbooks. There's recipes with risotto and mussels and pecorino. We also put it on salmon pasta sometimes. I've seen it. Pecorino, it's kind of a little exceptions in the south of Italy, but still very uncommon.
Okay.
Not many Italians even know about it.
What about linguine with clams, the vongole? Can you put cheese with that? Okay, that's my one rule that I break.
Yeah, no,
Sorry.
no.
I'm sorry.
I'm just saying I like to get the rules mostly as a service announcement so that when you do go to Italy, you don't upset the locals.
Yeah. Well, something that's very different between the US and Italy is that in the US, there's a lot of fusion and invention. And it's like people are always trying to come up with something new. Where in Italy, there's a lot of pride about the traditional. And, I think, is it DOC? Like you'll see this mark on products to know that there's like legality. If you're going to say that your pizza is Napoli style, you have to meet all these qualifications. The tradition is real.
Yeah, and in Italy, you eat Italian food.
Mhm.
There's not a lot of fusion, or it's other types of food that are not as popular like they are here.
Yeah.
You go to a restaurant and you eat Italian.
Right. What would your last meal be?
I would say the warmest meal for me are pasta bakes.
Mm.
Only because they are layered with different ingredients and there's layers upon layers and upon layers of flavor. And I would say my nonna's lasagna, which is tomato-based, meat, cheeses. There's even boiled eggs in it, salame. Yeah, Neapolitan lasagna is very heavy. And if I was to have my last meal, it would be that one.
Amazing.
It's like a nonna's embrace.
Yeah. Can you walk me through each layer?
Well, first you have to do like a meat sauce, like a bolognese style. So you have ground beef, but you can also do little meatballs.
I love that in lasagna. I've only had that a couple times, but so good.
It's very Neapolitan. And my great-grandmother, Carmelina, used to do it with the meatballs and the salame and the tomato.
Yeah.
So you would have like the layers of meat sauce, onion, carrot, celery, garlic, and the herbs like basil, and sometimes we put a little bay leaf in it.
Mhm.
And then cheeses, I would say provolone and mozzarella and Parmigiano Reggiano. And then I usually boil the eggs and shred both the egg whites and the egg yolks lightly in each layer.
Mhm.
And then you top it off again with the meat sauce, the mozzarella, the provolone, the Parmigiano, the eggs. And so you go for 4, 5, 6 layers.
And no bechamel.
Not in the one that I am accustomed to from my grandmother, But bechamel is delicious. You can always put the bechamel in, or a little ricotta if you want.
Where does the salami fit in? Would you like chop it up or have like the
Yeah.
full?
Yeah,
Okay.
you get like the little soppressata style, like the hard salami.
Yeah.
And then you kind of dice it and you sprinkle some of it.
That sounds so good. I've never had it
so
with egg.
delicious.
For her last meal, the pasta queen wants her Nonna's Neapolitan lasagna. When we come back, Nadia shares the American food she refuses to make for her children and which pasta she requested within minutes of giving birth. Your kids were born in Rome, or 3 of the 4 of them. But, I've seen your oldest daughter that you are on social media and, she has an American accent. Your kids are probably Americanized. I know. I've thought about that. Is it weird to have a different accent than your child?
No, but I would like him to not have an American accent when they speak Italian. And so we're practicing pronunciation like a Roman, not even an Italian, in Roman, where they were born.
Since they're so integrated into American life, are there foods that they want you to make or things that they bring in that you're like, no, what is this?
Hot dogs, burgers, hot dogs, mac and cheese, American style, and I absolutely forbid it.
They're going to rebel.
No, they've been to Italy so many times. My oldest 2 went to school in Rome. They really know it tastes better in Italy. So they have seen it themselves. It's not hard to convince them.
Speaking of your kids, talk to me about your birthing story.
That's something that I haven't really disclosed publicly, but my mom's side, they're healers and they have apothecaries to this day in Rome since the late 70s. Wow. They do potions and herbs, and between the farming and also mixing of potions and working in my grandmother's shop in the city center of Rome, I kind of started studying herbalism, healing with natural supplements and herbs and plants. And I think that's why it's perfect that I'm a cook, because I love nature and using ingredients from nature that are fresh. But with that, I also developed this kind of like, I have a little bit of a, I don't know how to say, like a witchy side.
That's exactly what I was thinking. I was going to say, you're a little bit witchy. Yeah.
A little witchy, yeah. And the business that my mom, my grandmother, and my mom's side of the family, it's called The Witch.
Okay.
And it's been going on now for over 40 years. I even studied some witchcraft growing up when I was in my teens. Good stuff, not bad stuff. Like more like magic and all of that, and using nature and worshiping nature. And I think it's perfect with Pasta Queen because I am all about the ingredients.
Yeah.
But with that, I decided not to use conventional birthing methods and to do it with these midwives in Rome. And Rome, home births are almost forbidden. It's like if you say that you're having a home birth, you're a little cuckoo, crazy.
You're a witch.
People get really scared. And so I did it once with my first child, and this team of midwives, incredible, very witchy. It was beautiful. And then I did it 3 more times after that.
Yeah.
No drugs, at home, all of them standing up.
Wow. I mean, I've seen a documentary about birthing though, and the idea of being on your back, they say, is so counterintuitive just for gravity's sake. Like the baby's coming down, so you should be in that kind of position. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely goes faster. It's a little bit more painful when you're standing up, but it's also like faster. So you're not laboring for so many hours.
Right. And what did you eat after your 3rd daughter was born?
One of my favorite dishes is a matriciana, which is a red, slightly spicy sauce with guanciale bacon. I was still dizzy. It was 25 minutes after I gave birth with Desiree, my 3rd daughter. And I just was like, can you run down to the restaurant and get me rigatoni alla matriciana? My mom couldn't even believe that I was sitting up. I just gave birth and I'm so earthy. I'm like, give me the most earthy, Roman, iconic pasta. No IVs, like the hospital IV and fluid, nothing. I went for an amatriciana.
I love it. I think, I think the part of it is how you feel. You feel nourished and that makes you feel good. Like that's a big part of the healing process.
Yeah, the tomatoes give me life. I really am obsessed with anything red. So tomato-based sauces are my favorite.
And that was Nadia Caterina Munno's last meal. Nadia, thank you so much. It was really nice meeting you. And I feel like I have to go eat pasta for breakfast now.
Yeah, please. Go and eat pasta.
I will. Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Rachel.
Cheers.
Ciao, Bella.
Ciao.
Ciao, ciao.
You can check out The Pasta Queen on Instagram, TikTok, and her TV show on Amazon Prime. It's part travel show, part cooking show, and Nadia explores 4 regions of Italy and then goes back to her kitchen to show you how to make the dishes that she just tried. Thanks to Cara Nicoletti of Seymour Meats and Veggies. Your Last Meal is a product of Seattle's Cascade PBS. This episode was produced with Maliha Syed and mixed and mastered by Sarah Bernard. Original theme music by Prom Queen. I created, host, and co-produce Your Last Meal. Make sure you hit the little subscribe button so you never miss an episode. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, would you please write a quick review? It means so much, not just for my self-esteem, but for the algorithm. The more reviews we get, the more the show is pushed out so more people can discover it. If you have questions, comments, a show idea, you can send me a message. Go to yourlastmealpodcast.com. I'm Rachel Bell, and this is Your Last Meal.